In order to enhance the dimensions in the tabular module, we're going to look at a couple of options. The first is mark as date. In order for time intelligence to work properly in the tabular model, the date dimension needs to be marked as date. This enables year to date, month to date, or parallel period and other time functions to be used with the DAX language. DAX stands for Data Analysis Expression Language and is used for calculations in the tabular model. Once you have the date dimension selected in the grid view, go to the Table menu choice and choose the Date submenu. From there, go to the Mark as Date Table submenu and it will bring up a window. This window will prompt you for the unique date data type column from the date table. When filtering columns in the Import Data section, make sure you do not deselect the date column for the date dimension table, or you will not be able to use these functions in measures or computed columns. The DAX functions can then be used with the correct syntax. Parallel period is a great example of time intelligence. This function lets you compare the measure in the current context for date, like month, quarter, or year, with the last period in parallel to that month, quarter, or year, and it is contained in the current date context. Sorting is another option to enhance your dimensions. There will come a time when the alphabetically sorted data is not what the end user wants in his or her report. Rather than modifying the report with the sorting option, you could do that in the tabular model and it could be passed to the reporting tool as metadata. In this example, month name needs to be sorted by number of month, not the name of month. In the relationship view, you can edit the properties of a column, in this case, the month. You could change the sort by column property to the number column you want the name sorted by. This can also be a calculated column. After refreshing the view, you can see the change sort results. Changing the attribute properties carries to the hierarchies that were built as well, so there is no need to worry about updating that column in a hierarchy. You can also hide the column used to do the sorting so it is not displayable in reporting tools. Now let's look at enhancing our dimensions by looking at the date dimension. First, in this demonstration, we're going to launch the SQL Server Data Tools. We're doing it from an icon, but you can do it from the Start menu. We'll open up under the File menu choice of Existing Project and Solution. This is our tabular model for the AdventureWorks DW14 database. Once that opens up, we're going to go to the Date tab. The first thing we need to do is mark this dimension as the date dimension. It's going to need this full date alternate key as a date data type in order to set the table as the date table. With the Date tab selected, we go to the Table menu choice, the submenu Date, and the Mark as Date Table option. It'll find the first date data type column in the table and have that selected for you, and it is a unique identifier for the date table. Here we'll click OK. We'll right click on AdventureWorks and deploy just to make sure there are no errors with that, and this will be deploying to our development server for right now. After we finish with that, let's look at enhancing the date dimension. Our date dimension currently, if we go to the grid view, has a hierarchy. In that hierarchy we have year, quarter, month, and date. Let's go analyze this in Excel to see what that looks like. We'll go to the Model menu choice and Analyze in Excel. We'll use the current user, or we could change it for a different context. Here we'll click OK, and Excel should come up with a connection to our tabular module. We'll select the Internet Sales Measure, and then we'll scroll down till we see the year, quarter, month, date hierarchy, and we'll drag that to rows. If we drill down into a year and then into a quarter, we will see the month is ordered alphabetically: February, January, March. We need to change that where it's by the number of month, not the name of the month. We'll minimize Excel, go back to SQL Server Data Tools, and we'll click on the English month name. We'll first change the column name to just month. Next, we'll go to the Sort by Column, drop down the list of available fields, and pick month, number of year. Now the month name will be sorted by the number. It'll also sort the month that's inside of the hierarchy. Before we continue on, let's go ahead and hide a couple more fields, like date key, the alternate key, and we'll keep the rest for now. We'll go back to Excel and go to the Data menu choice and refresh all. Watch how the months now change to the proper order. So now let's look at enhancing the dimensions as it relates to hierarchies. Unlike the year, quarter, month, day hierarchy in the date dimension, sometimes the relationships in a snowflake schema. This is where a dimension is related to a fact through another dimension. First, we create in the tabular a DAX function. It is called related, and it helps get columns from one dimension into the parent dimension. Next, you can hide the snowflake dimension in the grid or diagram view. This helps clean up the display to client reporting tools. Use the grid or diagram view and right-click on the table. The submenu will have a hide or unhide option for the client tools. Then you create the hierarchy in the Parent Table tab. The snowflake columns will now be computed columns in that parent dimension. Then you might want to clean up your dimensions. There are many properties for attributes and hierarchies. We use these to make the user experience with the model more fluid. The hidden property is a good source to hide the sources of a computed column. First, we see that full name is a computed column that uses the first and last name. Then we see that the first and last names can be hidden, but they're not hidden from the full name computed column. If there are no attributes that needed to be displayed in a table, you can hide the whole table, which is what we'll do for the snowflake schema. The column or attributes have properties like data type and data format. This helps with the reporting tools that can extract the metadata about the tabular module to properly display the values as attributes or measures. This helps the reporting person not have to do that formatting or data typing. In addition, there is a true and false property for default label for reporting. The table also has a field list property to define what order the attributes or columns should be shown in the reporting tool. Let's look at a demonstration of enhancing the dimensions in a tabular module. First, we'll launch SQL Server Data Tools. We can do this from an icon or from our Start menu, and we will open a previously created project. We're going to open the tabular model from the AdventureWorks DW14. Next, we'll pin down the solution and open our model. Once the model is open, the first thing we're going to do is look at the product category, and product subcategory tables. We'll go to the diagram view first. And here we can see the relationships in this snowflake. The main table is product connected to internet sales. but through the product subcategory key, we can get a subcategory name, and through the category key, we can get a category name. So we're going to go back to our grid view, go to the product table, and go to the far end to create a computed column. The first one we'll do is we'll relate to the subcategory table to get its name. We'll type an equal sign, start typing related, and you can see the IntelliSense shows us the functions that start with REL. I'll hit the tab key and then I'll pick the column. Since the column is not in this table, I can't use the bracket to find it. What I first have to do is find the table, and you use a single quote for that. Then if I start typing product, I can start seeing the product category as well as the subcategory tables. When I scroll down to product subcategory, I want the English product subcategory name. I'll hit the enter key. Oops, hold on, I forgot the in parentheses before hitting the end key. I should have hit the tab. But the error did recover, so I typed ending parentheses, and now I'll hit the enter key. You won't see any data currently because the product subcategory key is null for some products. But if I start scrolling down, you'll start seeing the subcategories. Once I know that calculation for the computer column is correct, I'm going to rename that column name as subcategory. Next, I'll do the same thing for the next column, but this time I'll say equals related, and I'll go to the product category table and get the English product category name. This time, instead of hitting enter, I'm going to hit the tab key, then type the in parentheses and hit the enter key. That'll compute my category column. I'll rename it category. And now I have the subcategory and category in my product table. Since I have those names in this table, which I'll show you the values as I scroll down, I don't need the product category or subcategory tables. So I can right click on their tab, hide from client tool. Right click on tab and hide from client tool. I still need these tables in my model, but I don't have to display them to the end user. The last thing we need to do is create a hierarchy for these two new columns. We'll go to the diagram view to the product table. I'll scroll down towards the bottom to see those computed columns, and I can right click on category and create a hierarchy. We'll call this hierarchy products by category. Next, I can right click on subcategory and add to the category table. I can also, while I'm in the grid or in the diagram view, highlight some of the columns in the product table, right click and hide from client tools. You can also hide the foreign names as well as being able to rename some of the columns. For instance, I'm going to hide some of the keys, and then I'm going to rename the English product name to just be product. Now I'll right click on product, add to hierarchy, and add it to my products by category hierarchy. I'm going to right click my project and deploy just to make sure it deploys to my development environment. And then after we do this, we're going to look at what this displays in Excel. I'm going to close the deploy window, go to the model menu choice, and analyze in Excel. We'll use the current window user and click OK. When Excel comes up, the first thing we notice is that the product category and product subcategory tables are no longer in our display. If we select Internet Sales for our measure and drill into product, we can drag the products by category to rows. And now we see those category levels: accessories, bikes, and clothing. If we drill into bikes, we see mountain bikes. And that's the subcategory. If we drill into the mountain bikes, we'll actually get the product name. Let's make one more change before we end this demonstration. We'll minimize Excel and go back to our diagram view. This time we'll scroll to the right and look at sales territory. The key has no value for the reporting tools, so we'll hide that, and then we'll create a hierarchy through these next three columns. We'll create a hierarchy, call this sales territories, and then we'll add country to that hierarchy and also group. The reason we're doing this with the sales territory is because it gets confusing to the end user what order region, country, and group go in. So we'll right-click those and hide from our client tools. We'll also rename the other columns in the hierarchy and take off the sales territory prefix. This will make it more visually appealing to our users. And it also takes up less space on the screen, so when you display these in a client tool, they don't hog space. Next, we'll go back to Excel, go to the Data menu choice, and refresh all. We should now be able to see the sales territory hierarchy. And we can place that on the columns now and drill back up to categories. And now we can see the accessory sales in Australia. And then in Australia, we can see what levels are below it. They don't have any other groups under Australia, but if we go to something like the Northeast, we'll see the United States and North America. Now, since we displayed this, we'll see that the region is not in the correct order. This is what gets confusing for end users. They sometimes have to try it a couple times to figure out what order these columns go in. So we need to go back to our SQL Server data tools, and we need to change the order of our sales territories hierarchy. We're going to drag group to the top, and we'll drag region to the bottom. And now if we go back to Excel, remove that hierarchy, go back to the top of the spreadsheet, and now go to Data, Refresh All, drag it back, we'll see the proper labeling now. So in North America, we have Canada and the United States, and now in the United States, we have different regions for there.